Hello gamers, this is Local Diablo, and on this episode I want to talk about dice. Now I've been getting a lot of feedback from people who have never role played before. They've never, I don't know if they've never heard of it, that they've never been in it. So a lot of people that have been contacting me don't really quite understand what I'm talking about. So I want to break it down to a much more easier topic. Now this really is not meant for anybody, even at the novice player of role playing, but I want to talk to the different style of dice that's out there. So if I lower this down, okay, so probably the most die you're gonna probably run into in just about any game is your D20, and this is a die that goes to 1 to 20. um, Then we have your D12, same principle, 1 to 12. Your D8, your D6, your D4, which looks like a triangle pyramid. Definitely, this is the die where if you drop on the ground, you definitely don't want to step on. And how you use this is when you, on this particular one, you take the number that comes to the ground. So I just roll the 1. Some of them, they'll have the numbers on top, so you take, it's the one that's by itself. And this is a D3. Not very common in role playing. In fact, you generally have to get them custom made or go to some sort of like convention to even get a D3. Generally, when you're using a D3, you have to use like a D6, and you would take one to 3 would be just 1 to 3, and then 4, 5, and 6 will be 1, 2, 3. So that's generally how you roll like a D3. I picked up a D3, an actual D3 die, which is really just a six-sided die that they just have the numbers on twice, so that is 1 out of 3 chance. Now for your Star Wars games, most of your West End games, you're probably going to be rolling just your D6. For your masterwork books for your West End games, you're going to be rolling 2 10s. What's different with this, there is another thing that's, if you ever see it come up, it's called percentile dice. What that is you're going to be rolling. You're going to have one die is going to be high, one's going to be low. You're going to roll, and you'll have like I just rolled like an 89. So it's going to be 1 out of 100. If you roll 2 zeros, it's considered 100. If you roll, 0 and a 1, it's going to be it's just going to be 1. Then I have another die which is more of like a custom style die, and that is it's just a blank die. And what you do is you just write with a D Sharpie. You just write whatever you want. So I was originally using this as a D3, and I would just write 1 1 2 2 3 3 and have my D3. But you can really use this for anything you want. And even when you use permanent marker, these things are not they easily wipe off, which is kind of the problem with them. So for your White Wolf games, you can be rolling like you're just going to be rolling D10s. And the way their system works is they'll have a set difficulty. So their difficulty might be like 6. So what you do is you roll your dice. You'll have a group of D10s. You roll your dice, And for every one that is, I actually rolled some d8s, but okay, so for every one if the difficulty is 6, you'll be counting up every, die that's greater than 6, and so I would have like 3 successes out of the 4 dice that I rolled. And so that's how they work with that. With like Star Wars, you would roll your d6s, and you would always have like a wild die. So you would want to use one die that's different colors. So if you roll like a 6, you can re-roll that and add it again. So if I roll like a 6, I would be able to re-roll it again and add it to my 6. And what you do is you just total up what you rolled, and you compare that to the difficulty that your game master would have set. Now, if a game system says it's a d20, what that basically means is you need to utilize all the dice. So you got to make sure that you have each style of dice. Obviously, you don't necessarily need the d3. I picked it up because I was rolling d3s quite a bit, so I felt like I needed it, and it was just more annoying than anything else not to have. So when the game system calls, it's generally they're called like d20s. You'll see something on here like d20. You might see like Star Wars d20. Basically, it means this is going to be the die that you're really going to be rolling the most, but you're going to be rolling all this style of dice, as opposed to like White Wolf or like the West End Games where you might use one like solely 6-sided dice, or with White Wolf you might solely use 10-sided dice. You're going to be, with the D20, you're going to be utilizing all the different style of dice. And they don't necessarily have to say D20 in order for it, to use a D20 die or a different style of dice, such as Savage World utilizes all the dice. It generally doesn't utilize as much dice as opposed to like the Dungeon Dragon system, which is the D20. It's always been a D20 style system. So I hope for any of you who are thinking about getting into this hobby, any of you who, to be honest, with the internet being as popular it is, with YouTube being as popular it is, you have a lot better chance of getting into this hobby than, opposed to me when I first started. I mean, when I was, first doing this in like, I don't know, like 88 or 89, pretty much, we were just we were trying to play it as well as we could. We didn't when I got into this, I didn't get into it with a person who knew how to play. I kind of got into it with someone who was learning just like me. So there's plenty of sites out there to explain these different games a lot better, and there's lots and lots of resources out there. So I hope this explains a little bit more, makes this a little bit more easier to understand on this hobby, and I hope that we can get more people to do this hobby, because this people have really dedicated quite a bit of their lives to this. So thank you for watching, and this is Local Diablo reminding you the devil's in details. Bye. Hey gamers, this is Local Diablo, and this goes along with the video that I had done earlier. Again, this is not a video for even the most novice players, but I wanted to throw a video up for people who have never role played, who don't know anything about it, but who are maybe interested, maybe someone who wants to get into the hobby. And so in the last video I showed you the different styles of dice. Here's D20, here's a D10. But now in this video, I want to explain why we roll dice. What is the point of this? So to to make this as simple as I can to explain, it's a more of like a, well, this is in fact a game. So there needs to be a form of chance. Okay, so this is a very unbiased, and this can be fair, and it's just to help promote the fun of the game, to really make this a game. Otherwise, without it, it could be just more of like a story. You don't necessarily have to have dice rolling for it to be the game. I played some games where we didn't even have dice. I remember one time we were playing a game where we were using, I'm not sure what they're called. I think they're like jingle blocks, or there's like these like blocks where you have to pull out a block and then you put it on top, like the jingle set style. And in that game, there was no dice rolling whatsoever. And what you would do is, if you want to succeed, you'd pull out a block, whatever you want to do. Whatever you want to do, you pulled out a block. If it falls, you died. The game was over for you. If you successfully did it, you succeeded whatever you wanted to do. You could also like knock the blocks over, and you would die, but your party would be like saved somehow, whatever you're planning on doing. It's to represent really your action. And in that game, even though we didn't have dice, it was in fact a game. So just because a game doesn't use the dice, it's it's just that way of that throwing out that level of skill and chance. Now I know one of the more recent Marvel games, they don't even have dice. They use what is referred to as like an effort system, where you have an effort pool, and the more you put in your action, the more dice you put in that pool into that action will result whether you succeed or failed. But for this, I'm really just talking, since I showed you the dice, I want to show you why we would roll the dice, to begin with. So I'm just gonna show you this character sheet here, and this is a character sheet, and this is in fact, this is true. The character sheet is truly what the game is. Now, of course, you have the books, and the books are in fact somewhat of the game, but the character sheet, for any, really in all intents and purposes, is more of the game than the book. The book really describes on how to make the character and the certain rules involved in it, but this is in fact really more so the game than the actual book itself. And so, I'm not, of course, the storyteller and the players are even more so more important than the character sheet, but the raw game itself is really based on the character. And most games use the same style. Now this is a White Wolf game. This is Werewolf the Apocalypse. And most games will kind of use the same style, but they'll call things differently. So we'll have, strength, dexterity, stamina, and in some, different games will have different things. So for instance, strength might be replaced with the word physique. Dexterity could be replaced with agility. Stamina could be like endurance. Different games will have different things. We have, charisma, manipulation, appearance, perception, intelligence, whips to represent the other factors. This will be the physical. These are representing the physical factors. These are representing the social, and here's the mental. Now in this White Wolf game, each dot represents a die. It actually represents a die for each dot. And the idea is, in the White Wolf game, is where there will be a set difficulty determined based on how difficult it is. So it could be, the difficulty could be 6. So every die that you roll that's 6 or greater would be considered a success. And then the more successes, more well you did a certain thing. Now, in Dungeons & Dragons, they use a D20, and their skills and attributes will actually raise the die so that it doesn't really promote randomness. And that is the real key thing here, is we're not really promoting randomness, despite the fact that the dice itself is pure randomness rolled. When rolled correctly, it is pure absolute randomness. We're not really throwing out randomness here. We are, though, that there is that that idea of chance, but randomness is not the correct thing that we're going for here. If we were just going for randomness, we could just, flip a coin, and heads you succeed, tails you fail. But no, we're really promoting pure randomness. We're not really promoting pure randomness. We're promoting chance, based on the fact that the better you are at that particular skill, the easier it is to roll the acquired number. So for instance, let's just use the White Wolf's game, the werewolf, and let's just say my werewolf here is going to shoot a gun. So with the rules, I would be rolling off of dexterity. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4 dots, and now in White Wolf they use like a system where you use attributes combined with skills. So then I would find firearms, and I would have 1 dot there. So that would be 5 dots, which is then like converted into dice. The idea is the greater the points, the easier it is to get your required roll that you need. So again, like let's say the difficulty was 6. So I've got 1, 2, 3. The 10 would be considered, the 0 would be considered a 10. Now in White Wolf, they have a thing where if you roll a 1, that's going to take away a success. So let's just assume that I rolled a 1. So I would remove that, and I would have 2 successes, determining how well that I rolled. The idea is the greater the amount of dice, the easier it is to succeed. So in that roll, I would have 2 successes. If I rolled more dice, I would have a greater chance to succeed. Though there is always that chance that I'm going to roll more 1s and stuff. Kind of ideally, the more complicated a situation is, the more likelihood of something going wrong. And there's always, because again, we're not really promoting randomness, but we are promoting chance. There's always that chance that that gun could jam. There's always that chance that that gun could misfire. But the likelihood of that chance is lessened by my pure skill. Now again, different games will use different systems. So let's say if we were playing Dungeons & Dragons, that my character wanted to jump across a hole. So the GM would determine what the difficulty would be. We would roll a 20-sided die, and he would have a set difficulty in his mind that we would have to meet on the 20-sided die. So we would roll, and I rolled a 3. Not a very good roll, but I would have a skill that would be called jump, and that the amount of points on the skill would add to that. So let's say that my skill was at 5. You would add 5 to 3, raising it to 8. Ideally, the higher my skill, the less likelihood of failing. And also, there could be other factors involved. Maybe I'm wearing heavy armor, which would lower my jump skill. Maybe I'm have a lot of equipment with me, which would also lower it. Maybe I just never put any points in jump, so I'm not very good at jumping. these things can come into factors. So it's either something that can help you or hurt you. But that's really in all actuality, that's kind of the point that of the dice rolling, is really just more of a very unbiased form of just the game itself. Again, I just wanted to explain that even though that we're using dice, and dice really represents pure randomness, this is not really randomness as much as for chance. And there really is a difference in here, and the factor is that what makes it the difference is in fact your character sheet, that which makes it the difference based on the points that you put on there. Thank you for watching. I hope I explained this a little bit more for those of you who were unaware of just RPGing. And again, thank you for watching. And this is Local Diablo explaining the devils in details. Goodbye.